The story opens in 1989, East Texas, where Anna wakes up to strange noises in the house. Her husband, Richard, tells her to stay put while he grabs his revolver from the closet. He checks on their son, Jordan, who seems to be sound asleep, before heading to the living room. There, he sees someone shining a flashlight on the walls. Startled and scared, Richard accidentally pulls the trigger. When Anna turns on the lights, they are horrified to realize he has shot the intruder in the eyes, killing him instantly. The couple quickly calls the police. Chief Ray arrives, reassures them, and identifies the intruder as Freddy Russell. He asks Richard to come to the station to give an official statement. At the station, Ray tells Richard he did nothing wrong since it was self-defense. Richard, however, feels guilty, pointing out that Freddy was unarmed. Ray explains that Richard couldn't have known that, and adds that Freddy was a wanted criminal, so the police consider it a success. The following day, the couple remains shaken. Word of the incident spreads across town, and rumors start flying. While Richard is at work, Anna, a schoolteacher, calls to tell him that everyone at school is talking about it. Later, at a diner, Richard notices people staring at him with fear. Frustrated, he starts drinking, despite it being early in the day. Chief Ray finds him there, notices his sour mood, and offers comfort. He mentions that Freddy's burial will take place the next day and gives Richard the cemetery address. He also warns Richard that Freddy's father, a criminal just released after serving 20 years, is still around. The following day, Richard goes to the cemetery and sees a small group of people burying Freddy. An old man approaches him, introducing himself as Freddy's father, Ben Russell. Richard grows uneasy and apologizes, insisting he had no choice in what happened. Ben coldly replies that it doesn't change the fact that Richard killed his son. He also mentions seeing Richard's family photo in the paper and notes how much Jordan resembles him. The comment rattles Richard, who panics and drives off in a hurry. He calls Anna from a payphone, telling her to meet him at the police station. Before heading there, he rushes to Jordan's school, relieved to find his son safe. But his relief turns to dread when he spots Ben watching them from a distance, smiling menacingly. At the station, Richard pleads with Chief Ray to arrest Ben, but Ray explains he has no grounds. Ben hasn't made a direct threat or broken any law. The most he can do is send patrols to check on the family. Later, Anna scolds Richard for attending the burial, blaming him for provoking the situation. Richard suggests she and Jordan stay at her mother's, but Anna refuses, fearing for her mother's safety. She proposes going to Richard's father's cabin, but he rejects the idea, saying it's too isolated and dangerous. When they return home, Richard notices the lock has been tampered with. Alarmed, he tells Anna and Jordan to leave immediately and stay at her friend's place. Inside, he suspects Ben has been in Jordan's room. He finds bullets scattered across the floor and a teddy bear with one eye torn out. Horrified, he calls the police. This time, Ray takes the threat seriously and arranges protection. He instructs the family to continue their daily routine, promising officers will shadow them wherever they go. If Ben makes a move, the cops will be ready to catch him. Ray assigns one officer to stay inside the house, while others position themselves outside, lying in wait. Around midnight, during a heavy rainstorm, Richard wakes up to get some milk. Outside, a car suddenly pulls up, putting the officers on high alert. They prepare to act, only to find it's just a neighbor searching for his lost dog. Relieved, Richard returns to bed beside Anna. But during a flash of lightning, Ben is revealed inside the house, silently watching Jordan sleep. Moments later, Richard wakes to the sound of dripping water and finds it coming from an open attic hatch. Terrified, he discovers an officer unconscious and realizes Jordan's bedroom door is locked. He breaks it down, only to find Ben has already escaped through the window, leaving Jordan unharmed. The police chase after Ben, and the shaken family struggles to understand how he bypassed the heavy security. Ray explains that Ben must have hidden inside the house since the first break-in. The next morning, as Richard cleans up, he receives a call from Ray, who happily reports that Ben was caught trying to cross into Mexico. Relieved, Richard feels his family is finally safe. At the station, while signing a report, he notices a wanted poster for Freddy. To his shock, the face doesn't match the man he shot. When he points this out, Ray insists it is the same person, suggesting Richard's memory is unreliable due to shock that night. Back home, Richard can't shake the feeling that what he saw that night was real. He calls Ray and insists he didn't shoot Freddy, but Ray dismisses him, telling him to let it go before abruptly hanging up. Restless, Richard drives to the station to confront Ray in person. To his shock, he sees Ray and other officers escorting Ben into a car. Suspicious, he follows them to a train station. Hiding in the shadows, Richard watches as the cops drag Ben out, inject him with something, then douse him in alcohol and leave him unconscious on the train tracks. Horrified, Richard hears the train approaching and struggles with what to do. In the end, he rushes forward, saving Ben at the last second. Richard takes Ben to his secluded cabin in the woods, chains him up, and leaves him there in stunned silence. The next day, Richard returns with food and water. He explains everything he witnessed, insisting he didn't kill Freddy and that the police used his family as bait. Ben, however, doesn't believe him, convinced Richard murdered his son. To prove his point, Richard suggests they go together to find the truth. That night, they sneak into the cemetery where Freddy was supposedly buried. Digging up the grave, they discover the body inside is not Freddy. The corpse's fingertips have been severed to prevent identification, confirming their suspicion that Freddy is still alive and that the police orchestrated the deception. Faced with the truth, the two discuss their next move at a diner. Ben borrows money from Richard and calls a friend, explaining that he's in serious trouble and needs help. The next day at work, Richard is surprised when Ray shows up. Ray claims Richard didn't recognize Freddy on the wanted poster because Freddy had dyed his hair while on the run. Richard knows Ray is lying but pretends to accept the explanation. During their talk, a man named Jim Bob arrives, prompting Ray to leave. Jim introduces himself as a private detective, the same man Ben had called for help the previous night. Richard takes him to the remote cabin where Ben is hiding. There, Ben explains everything and admits he just wants to see his son after 20 years. The three agree to work together to uncover the truth and track down Freddy. Jim begins digging into Freddy's past and uncovers that he had been involved in crime since his youth, eventually becoming entangled with the Dixie Mafia. Recently, Freddy was arrested by the FBI and placed in the Witness Protection Program, trading information about the Mafia for his freedom. To protect him from retaliation, the feds staged his death. This confirms Freddy is alive, living under a new identity. Jim reveals the FBI's Houston office is handling the case, making it likely Freddy is hiding there. He invites Ben to travel with him to track Freddy down. Richard insists on joining, determined to learn who he actually shot that night. The trio heads to Houston and arrives at Jim's ranch, where he raises pigs. While investigating, Jim discovers a man named Frank Miller who strongly matches Freddy's description. Frank has just moved into the area and recently bought a new house. Jim suggests Ben call him to confirm, but Ben refuses, saying he wants to meet his son face to face. The next day, the three head to the address they believe belongs to Freddy. Once there, their car collides with another vehicle. A muscular Mexican man steps out, hurling insults before attacking Jim. Ben and Jim fight back, eventually overpowering him. While inspecting their damaged car, the man's trunk accidentally opens, revealing several VHS tapes. They take one with them. Back at Jim's place, Richard and Jim begin watching the tape while Ben sits in another room, debating whether to call the phone number he has for Freddy. The tape reveals a disturbing scene. Freddy appears on screen wielding a baseball bat, while the Mexican man holds down a tied-up girl. Freddy then brutally beats her to death. Horrified, they realize the other tapes likely contain similar crimes, used as a source of income. Meanwhile, Ben nervously dials his son's number, but hangs up as soon as he hears Freddy's voice. When he asks what was on the tape, Jim and Richard hesitate, saying it's better he doesn't know. Ben insists, so they show him. After watching, Ben explodes in rage, smashing furniture before grabbing his gun and storming toward Jim's car, intent on killing Freddy. Jim and Richard barely manage to calm him down, urging him not to act recklessly. That evening, Ben still sits brooding in his car while the other two discuss their next move. Richard suggests handing the tapes to the police, but Jim argues the FBI is already aware. He explains the victims are undocumented immigrant women, people the authorities don't care about. Freddy, on the other hand, is too valuable as an informant on the Dixie Mafia. When Richard asks how long he has known Ben, Jim reveals they fought together in the Korean War, and Ben once saved his life. The next morning, Jim and Richard are jolted awake by gunfire, only to realize Ben is outside practicing his shooting. Ben tells them that when a dog bites, you either chain it or put it down, and since he can no longer control his son, he's decided Freddy must be killed. Later, the trio surveils Freddy's house. Ben is shaken when he sees his son for the first time in 20 years, walking out with the Mexican. They tail him and discover he runs a video rental store, where he hides violent films among the regular ones. That night, they wait outside Freddy's house with their weapons ready. Just as they are about to move in, 4 more men arrive with a girl, and Freddy welcomes her inside. Horrified, Ben wants to kill Freddy on the spot, but the others restrain him. Instead, they follow the group as they take the girl to a remote mansion used for filming. Parking nearby, the trio arms themselves and begins their assault. They first kill the man unloading equipment, then split up to infiltrate the house. Richard runs into a servant carrying food, who attacks and pins him down. Struggling, Richard manages to shoot him in the head. Soon after, another gang member spots him and opens fire with a rifle, but Ben intervenes and kills the shooter. A brutal gunfight breaks out inside the mansion, with the trio systematically eliminating Freddy's men. Eventually, they hear screams upstairs and rush toward them. In a filming room, they find the terrified girl, half naked and tied to a bed. Richard quickly covers her with a blanket, shielding her from further humiliation. Moments later, Ben corners Freddy hiding in a corner and raises his gun, but he hesitates, unable to pull the trigger. Freddy seizes the chance to wound Jim and shoot Ben in the stomach. Gravely injured, Ben finally finds the strength to fire back. Before finishing him, Ben tells Freddy that he is his father and came to kill him. Freddy is stunned, and Ben shoots him in the head. Freddy dies instantly, and Ben soon succumbs to his own wounds. Afterward, Jim and Richard free the terrified girl and lead her out of the mansion. They set the place ablaze, erasing all traces of the horrors inside. The next day, Richard leaves Jim's ranch and returns home. He quietly slips into bed beside his wife and son, finally at peace. If you enjoyed this video, don't be shy to hit the like button, and if you disliked it, hit the dislike button twice, just to be sure. It would be best if you watched the whole movie. Thank you very much for watching. Please subscribe for more videos like this.